You have been taught a lie, a convenient fiction, that vulnerability is strength. It is a gospel for the masses, designed to keep them predictable and weak. True power is not worn on the sleeve. It is forged in the silent crucible of emotional control. This is the secret. Our very biology is a traitor in the boardroom. The limbic system, that ancient engine of fight or flight, evolved for tribal survival on the savannah, not for the intricate chess match of a high-stakes negotiation. Its responses are blunt, primitive, and utterly transparent. To show emotion is to open your playbook for all to see. It is the purest form of data breach, a voluntary surrender of your internal state, your fears, your desires, and, most critically, your breaking points. You hand your opponent the very schematics of your own mind before the first word of negotiation is even spoken. Any competent adversary is, at their core, a student of human tells. They are trained to read the subtle tremor in your voice, the faint tightening around your eyes, the slight shift in your posture. These are not signs of authenticity. They are signals of opportunity. They are the cracks in your armor that your opponent will expertly widen, using your own reactions to leverage their position. To reveal your inner state is to grant them a map to your weaknesses, a map they will follow with ruthless efficiency until they have claimed victory from your own self-betrayal. Consider the reactive feedback loop. When you display frustration, you cede control of the negotiation's tempo. Your opponent now knows that they have struck a nerve and will press their advantage. When you show premature excitement, you reveal your eagerness to close the deal, instantly weakening your bargaining position. Each emotional display is a concession of power, allowing the other party to dictate the flow and pace of the entire interaction. You cease to be a player in the game and instead become a piece on the board, moved at the will of a more composed master. There is also a severe cognitive cost to this emotional leakage. The mental energy required to process and express strong feelings is immense. This is finite cognitive bandwidth that is being diverted away from what truly matters: strategic analysis, objective observation, and the cold, hard calculation of probabilities and outcomes. While you are wrestling with your own internal storm, your impassive opponent is using 100% of their intellectual resources to dismantle your arguments and construct their victory, one logical block at a time. Imagine two figures in a critical deal. One is a storm of reactions, a frown at a low offer, a flash of excitement at a concession. The other is a monolith of calm, their expression an unreadable landscape. Power does not flow between them. It hemorrhages from the first and is absorbed by the second. The emotional player is negotiating blind, guided by impulse, while the stoic player sees the entire board with perfect clarity. The outcome is not just probable, it is, from a strategic standpoint, a foregone conclusion based on this fundamental asymmetry. John D. Rockefeller was not merely a titan of industry. He was a master of applied psychology, operating in a world that was purely Darwinian. He understood a principle that has been forgotten in our age of performative sentiment. The man who controls his own expressions controls the room. His legendary calm was not a sign of coldness but a calculated, strategic weapon. He did not engage in the emotional theatrics of his rivals. Instead, he cultivated a stillness that was both unnerving and profoundly powerful, a quiet that spoke louder than any shouted demand or passionate plea. His silence was a battlefield of his own design. In moments of intense pressure, where others would fill the air with nervous chatter or anxious proposals, Rockefeller would simply wait. This calculated absence of response created a vacuum, a psychological void that his opponents felt an overwhelming compulsion to fill. In their haste to break the tension, they would reveal their anxieties, their hidden deadlines, and their final offers. They would, in essence, negotiate against themselves, bidding down their own positions in the face of his unyielding composure. He perfected the art of becoming an empty mirror. By projecting no emotion, he offered his adversaries no data to react to. Instead, they saw only a reflection of their own internal states. Their own greed, fear, and impatience were mirrored back at them, amplified by his silence. They were not fighting Rockefeller. They were fighting the phantoms of their own minds, and it was a battle they were guaranteed to lose. His impassivity turned their own psychological weaknesses into his most potent assets, a masterstroke of strategic empathy. There are countless accounts of pivotal negotiations for Standard Oil where chaos reigned among his competitors. Panic, anger, and desperation filled the air as men saw their fortunes on the line. Yet, at the center of this hurricane, Rockefeller remained the calm eye of the storm. His stillness was not passive. It was an active force, a gravitational center that bent the frenzied energy of the room to his will. His rivals would exhaust themselves battling each other and their own emotions, leaving him to dictate the final terms to the weary survivors. This approach, practiced with unwavering consistency, built a reputation that became a force multiplier. His name became synonymous with unflappable control. Opponents would enter a room already at a disadvantage, intimidated not by his wealth, but by his legendary self-possession. They knew that their usual tactics of emotional leverage and intimidation would be useless against him. This psychological warfare was won before he even sat at the table, a testament to the compounding interest of a controlled character. Let us be precise. This is not a call for apathy or the eradication of feeling that would be inhuman and, frankly, impossible. The distinction is critical. Rockefeller was not a man without emotion. He was a man who was a master over its expression. He felt the same pressures, the same temptations to anger or elation as anyone else. But he understood that to allow those feelings to cross the threshold from his internal world to his external expression was a strategic blunder of the highest order. The architecture of your own mind is the key. Your prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive function, acts as a sentinel, a gatekeeper standing between the raw impulsive signals of your amygdala and the outside world. The goal is not to silence the amygdala, but to train the sentinel to be disciplined, to hold the gate, and to allow nothing to pass without a direct, strategic command. This internal governance is the foundation of all external power and the first step toward true mental sovereignty. You must conceptualize your mind as a fortress. Within this fortress is an inner chamber, a secure room where emotions are permitted to exist. Here you can acknowledge them, analyze them, and understand the information they provide. But the outer walls of the fortress are your facial expression. Your tone of voice, your body language must remain impenetrable. Nothing gets out unless you, the commander, authorize it for a specific, tactical purpose. This separation is not deception, it is discipline. Practice the art of the deliberate delay. When you receive an external stimulus, a provocative statement, an insulting offer, do not react. Instead, create a conscious, mental airlock between the stimulus and your response. In this space, this brief purgatory of thought, you can observe your initial emotional impulse rise and fall without acting upon it. This fractional pause is where impulse dies and strategy is born. It is the single most powerful habit you can cultivate in any high-stakes environment. This requires a form of intellectual dissociation. You must train yourself to observe your own emotions, as a scientist observes data on a screen. View your anger or anxiety with a detached curiosity, asking, why has this stimulus produced this internal response? By objectifying the emotion, you strip it of its power over you. You cease to be the emotion and instead become the conscious observer of it. This shift in perspective is the difference between being a slave to your passions and being a master of your mind. Be aware that your body is a natural traitor to your will. An unmanaged mind will reveal itself through a tightened jaw, a quickened breath, or restless hands. Therefore, your training must be holistic. You must bring your physiology under conscious control, practicing calm diaphragmatic breathing to maintain a low heart rate under pressure. Your posture must project relaxed confidence, even when your inner chamber is in turmoil. Every physical signal must be aligned with your strategic intent of impassivity. Initially, this process will require immense conscious effort. It will feel unnatural, like speaking a foreign language, but with relentless practice, this separation of internal feeling from external expression becomes a subconscious reflex. It becomes your default state in any situation that matters. This frees your conscious mind from the burden of emotional management and allows it to dedicate all of its formidable power to the strategic problem at hand, giving you an almost unfair advantage. Now, let us discuss the arsenal of the implacable. The most potent tool is the active use of silence. Silence is not a void, it is a pressure. It communicates complete control and a lack of neediness. It forces your opponent to question their own position, to doubt themselves, and to offer concessions simply to break the profound discomfort of your stillness. You make them bid against an echo, and in doing so, they will invariably reveal far more than they ever intended, filling the space with valuable intelligence. Master the calibrated question. While your opponent is on an emotional tangent, you remain a dispassionate analyst. Your questions should be cool, precise, and designed not to reveal your own position, but to probe theirs. Ask, can you explain the logic behind that number? Or what is the primary objective you hope to achieve with that term? These questions force them back into the realm of logic, a territory where their emotional state leaves them at a distinct disadvantage against your calm. Employ the language of complete detachment. Purge your vocabulary of emotionally charged adjectives and adverbs. Frame every discussion in the most objective, impersonal terms possible. You are not disappointed with their offer. You simply observe that the numbers do not align with the market reality. This linguistic discipline creates a frame of pure logic, making any emotional outburst from your opponent seem childish and unprofessional by contrast. Further cementing your position of authority, your gaze is a weapon, and it must be trained. Maintain steady, focused eye contact, but strip it of any emotional signaling. Your look should not convey aggression, warmth, or judgment. It should communicate only one thing: absolute, unwavering attention. This focused neutrality is deeply unnerving to most people. It makes them feel as if they are being analyzed by a superior intelligence, compelling them to be more truthful and less performative for fear of being instantly detected. Your breath is the physiological anchor of your mind. Before entering any high-pressure situation, and during it, practice controlled, diaphragmatic breathing. Inhale slowly through the nose, feel your abdomen expand, and exhale even more slowly. This simple act manually lowers your heart rate and signals to your nervous system that you are not in danger. It prevents the amygdala hijack, that primal flood of cortisol and adrenaline that clouds judgment and forces catastrophic errors. Develop a mental anchor of indifference. This is a pre-rehearsed mental state you can access at will. Before a meeting, spend a few moments contemplating the vastness of the universe or a complex mathematical problem. Connect with a state of pure, intellectual curiosity, completely detached from the personal outcome of the upcoming interaction. You walk into the room not as a participant with something to lose, but as an observer, a scientist ready to collect data with supreme objectivity. Once you have silenced your own transmission, your mind is free to become the ultimate receiver. You are no longer broadcasting your own emotional static, so you can tune into the subtle frequencies of your opponent with perfect clarity. Every slight hesitation, every fleeting microexpression, every subtle shift in vocal tonality becomes a piece of high-resolution data. You are not just listening to their words. You are witnessing the truth behind them, a truth they are often unaware they are even revealing. You must look beyond the crude alphabet of basic body language. Look for the involuntary tells. The micro-expression of contempt that flashes for a fraction of a second. The slight rise in vocal pitch that indicates stress when discussing a specific topic. The use of distancing language when a lie is being told. These are the tells that leak from the subconscious mind. And to the trained and passive observer, they are as clear as a confession written in black ink. Your goal is to map the emotional landscape of your adversary. By observing their reactions to various stimuli, you can identify their primary drivers. Is it ego? Do they respond to flattery or puff up at a perceived slight? Is it fear? Do they become defensive when their security is questioned? Is it greed? Do their eyes light up at the mention of pure profit? Understanding their emotional engine gives you the key to controlling their behavior without them ever knowing it. You can actively test this landscape, introduce a neutral but unexpected variable into the conversation, a hypothetical problem, a mention of a new competitor, a sudden question about a minor detail. Then, observe their unfiltered reaction in that first moment before their conscious mind can construct a defense. This stress test will reveal the true fault lines in their psychological armor, showing you exactly where to apply pressure should the need arise for a decisive maneuver. Crucial to this process is establishing a baseline. Observe your opponent's normal mode of speaking and behaving when the stakes are low. What is their normal blink rate, their natural posture, their typical speech cadence? Any deviation from this established baseline during a critical phase of the negotiation becomes a red flag, a signal of internal pressure, deception, or insecurity. You are reading the man, not just the spreadsheet, and the man tells a far more accurate story. Over the course of an interaction, you are not merely negotiating, you are building a psychological dossier. You are silently cataloging their triggers, their vanities, their insecurities, and their blind spots. This is not for malicious intent, but for strategic advantage. You are assembling a complete intelligence picture of the person opposite you, allowing you to anticipate their moves, counter their tactics, and guide them toward a conclusion that aligns with your objectives, often making them believe it was their idea all along. This entire framework is not a modern invention of corporate psychology. It is the direct application of ancient Stoic wisdom, refined in the unforgiving crucible of the real world. Thinkers like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius understood that the external world is chaotic and unpredictable. The only domain over which we have absolute control is our own mind, our own judgments, and our own reactions. Rockefeller, whether he knew it or not, was a practicing Stoic in the arena of commerce. The core of this philosophy is the dichotomy of control. The Stoics divided the world into two categories: things we can control and things we cannot. The opinions of others, the state of the market, the actions of a competitor, these are external and ultimately beyond our command. Our response to these things, however, is entirely within our power. To waste emotional energy on the uncontrollable is the definition of strategic folly. The master focuses solely on their own disciplined response. Practice premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Before any significant undertaking, take time to visualize the worst possible outcomes in vivid detail. Your deal could collapse. You could be publicly humiliated. Your competitor could triumph. By confronting these possibilities in your mind beforehand, you rob them of their power to shock and destabilize you in the moment. You emotionally inoculate yourself against failure, allowing you to respond with cold logic rather than hot panic when adversity strikes. This leads to a state of selective indifference. The Stoic cultivates a profound indifference to things that are outside of their control. Praise does not elate them, and insults do not wound them. They are playing a different game, an inner game, where the only metric of success is maintaining their own rational composure and acting with virtue, regardless of the external result. This inner stability makes them an immovable object in a world of frantic, reactive forces, a rock in a raging sea. Virtue, to the Stoic, is the sole good. This virtue is expressed through wisdom, courage, justice, and, above all, temperance, the control of one's own appetites and emotions. When you reframe your goal from winning the deal to acting with perfect rational self-control during the deal, a profound shift occurs. Winning becomes a desirable but non-essential byproduct of your true objective, which is the mastery of your own character. This mindset is the ultimate source of unshakable strength. Therefore, we must see Rockefeller's impassivity not as a lack of humanity, but as the rigorous application of these principles. He was a man who understood that the only way to build a lasting order out of the chaos of competitive capitalism was to first build a fortress of perfect order within his own mind. His empire of oil was merely a physical manifestation of his far more impressive empire of the self, a testament to the supreme power of disciplined reason. However, the true master understands that never is a guideline for the student, not an absolute law for the adept. Once you have achieved complete control over your emotional expression, you can, on rare and calculated occasions, deploy emotion as a tool. The key is that the emotion does not use you, you use it. This is the highest level of this art, moving from defense to a strategic, psychological offense that is all the more effective for its rarity. Consider the calculated wrath. A sudden controlled display of anger can shatter an opponent's complacency, establish an uncrossable boundary, or force a stalled negotiation to a rapid conclusion. This is not a genuine loss of temper. It is a theatrical performance, deployed with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel to achieve a specific outcome. Because it is so contrary to your usual composure, its impact is magnified 1,000-fold, creating a shockwave that reshapes the entire dynamic. There is also strategic passion. In moments where you need to inspire your team, rally shareholders, or close a deal with a wavering partner, a controlled performance of conviction and belief can be incredibly effective. This is not the naive enthusiasm of a novice, but a carefully modulated display designed to convey unwavering commitment. You are a conductor, bringing the orchestra of others' emotions to a crescendo that serves your ultimate purpose, while your own inner state remains perfectly serene. One can also use tactical disappointment. By feigning minor disappointment over a secondary concession, you can make your opponent feel that they have won a significant victory. This satisfies their ego and makes them more pliable on the issues that truly matter to you. You sacrifice a pawn with a dramatic flourish to distract them from the fact that you are positioning your queen for checkmate. It is a subtle misdirection that leverages their need to feel they have extracted a difficult compromise. The ultimate test is this: is the emotion reactive or proactive? A reactive emotion is a genuine impulse that you failed to control. It is a weakness. A proactive or performed emotion is a tool you have consciously chosen to deploy from your arsenal to achieve a strategic objective. One is a sign of amateurism. The other is a hallmark of absolute mastery. Knowing the difference and having the discipline to live it is what separates the titans from the merely talented. Remember the economy of expression. The power of these emotional displays lies entirely in their scarcity. If you are constantly performing passion or anger, the effect is diluted and you are seen as merely volatile. But if you are a monolith of calm 99% of the time, that 1% when you choose to display an emotion has the force of a thunderclap. It becomes a memorable, defining moment that compels action and commands respect. Over time, this disciplined approach moves from a mere tactic to the core of your reputation. You are no longer just a person who stays calm under pressure. You become known as the person who cannot be rattled. This reputation precedes you into every room, into every negotiation. It is an invisible, weightless asset that is more valuable than any line of credit or legal team. It is an aura of power that you carry with you. This creates a permanent, asymmetric advantage. Your opponents will enter negotiations already off balance, dedicating a significant portion of their mental energy to the futile task of trying to read you. While they are lost in this guesswork, you are calmly reading them like an open book. They are playing poker against a man they know has a perfect poker face, and the psychological weight of that knowledge will inevitably lead them to make unforced errors. The anticipation of your calmness becomes a weapon in itself. Knowing that you will not react emotionally, your adversaries will often overthink their own strategies. They will second-guess their bluffs, moderate their aggressive tactics, and hesitate at crucial moments. Your past behavior becomes a silent governor on their future actions, limiting their options and forcing them to play the game on your terms. Within the logical, rational framework that you have established, this kind of power has a gravitational pull. The best and brightest are not drawn to chaotic emotional leaders. They seek out strength, stability, and predictability. By embodying an unwavering calm, you become a beacon for top talent and a trusted partner for major opportunities. People will bring you their most difficult problems because they know you will approach them with clarity and reason, not with panic and impulse. You become a pillar of stability in a volatile world. One must, however, acknowledge the price of this discipline. This path can lead to a certain isolation. You may be respected, even feared, but you may not be liked in the conventional sense. Your composure can be misinterpreted as coldness or arrogance by those who operate on a purely emotional level. This is the loneliness of the summit. It is the cost of true autonomy and the burden of seeing the world with a clarity that few others can comprehend. But the ultimate value of this strategy is its longevity. It is not a cheap trick or a fashionable tactic that will be obsolete next year. It is a character-based strategy built on the timeless foundation of self-control. It is a system that thrives on volatility and chaos, growing stronger as the world around it becomes more uncertain. You are not building a business strategy. You are forging a character that is impervious to the whims of fortune and the passions of lesser men. Ultimately, the most difficult negotiation you will ever face is not with a competitor or a client. The final, most relentless adversary resides within your own mind. It is your own ego, with its desperate need for validation. It is your own impatience, which whispers that a bad deal now is better than a great deal later. It is your own fear, which paints catastrophic pictures of loss and failure. To master the outer world, you must first conquer this inner one. This requires constant, ruthless self-monitoring. You must become the detached observer of your own thought processes, perpetually questioning your own motives, and analyzing your own latent emotional responses in real time. Are you making this decision based on logic, or is it a subtle reaction to a bruised ego? This internal audit must be relentless, honest, and unforgiving. It is the ongoing work of a lifetime, the price of maintaining your mental fortress. Reframe your understanding of freedom. True freedom is not the liberty to act on every impulse and express every fleeting emotion. That is a form of slavery, a bondage to your own primitive biology. True freedom is the discipline to choose your response. It is the power to act from a place of pure reason, to be the master of your own ship, capable of navigating any storm with a steady hand on the tiller, not a creature tossed about by the waves of circumstance. Yet, there is a profound danger in this mastery, the poison of arrogance. Once you realize you can see what others cannot and remain calm while they panic, it is easy to fall into a state of contempt. This is the ultimate blind spot. True control is always paired with a quiet humility, the recognition that you are fallible and that the world is infinitely complex. The moment you believe you are invincible is the moment you become most vulnerable to a fall. This is not a switch you can simply flip. It is a muscle that must be built through daily exercise. Practice this emotional control in low-stakes interactions. A disagreement with a colleague, a frustrating customer service call, a traffic jam. Use these small annoyances as a gymnasium for your mind. By strengthening your discipline on these minor challenges, you ensure that it will hold firm when you are faced with a battle that truly defines your future. The ultimate victory is silent. It is not celebrated with a triumphant shout or a clenched fist. It is marked by a quiet internal nod of acknowledgement. It is the deep, profound satisfaction of knowing that, under immense pressure, you held the line, you did not break. You remained in absolute control of the only empire that will ever truly matter, the one that exists between your own two ears. That is the only victory worth winning, and it is the foundation of all others. The final legacy of this control is not the wealth you accumulate or the deals you win. It is the clarity you achieve. The impassive face of a Rockefeller was not a mask hiding emptiness, but a shield protecting a mind operating at its absolute peak, unburdened by the distorting fog of emotion. This is not an invitation to become unfeeling, but a challenge to become unshakable. The question is not if you can use this trick, but if you possess the discipline to become the kind of person who can wield it. Discuss in the comments, what is the single most difficult emotion for you to control under pressure? Subscribe for more dissections of the strategies that silently govern power.